Hey everybody, I'm back with another comic book spoiler review. And the next comic book I'll be getting into, continuing with the theme of Superman Review Month, I'll be covering Superman for Tomorrow, written by Brian Azzarello, art by Jim Lee and Scott Williams. Before we continue, please leave a like, comment, share this with your friends. Follow me on links in the description below, my YouTube, Patreon, Twitch, where I post and go live for various reviews and video game walkthroughs. And it'll greatly appreciate it, and it'll greatly help the channel. And before we get right into the meat and potatoes, we have to do what we have to do. All right. Well, my last comic book review was Superman for All Seasons. Check that out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkingofcarl. If you want to hear my thoughts on that comic, it's just like a 4-issue story. And while I was scouring for that for a decent like Superman story for this month, I came across this and I'm like, oh wow, this looked kind of interesting. Never read this before. So Superman for Tomorrow. For a split second, I thought it was like, oh, this must be like a New 52. But no, if it was New 52, he wouldn't have those red underwear. So it's pretty much, way before then. So Superman is dealing with like a particular personal crisis, not like a crisis on Infinite Earths level crisis, just like a personal crisis on his own. As he's flying around Metropolis, he comes across this church and meets up with this priest. I keep blanking on that doggone priest's name, and it'll come across in a panel at some point, but we'll just call him the priest. And he is speaking with the priest, saying like, you keep secrets very well, right? People can trust you, you can hear people out and all that other stuff. Yeah, like you saying you want to confess, like, hey, I'm all ears. I do not divulge any secrets to anybody, not even to you. And I was like, oh, okay, good. So Superman just needs somebody to listen to because he's dealing with a lot. And of course, it's kind of very, I don't want to say on the nose, but clearly, like, Superman is very like an allegory to Jesus and Moses type of, thing. So I think we all understand it. I think most people would agree that it shouldn't be overplayed. But every so often, depending on if you have like a good story to tell, it can fit. Like here, it's pretty good. It's like, yeah, he's dealing with like a personal crisis that he can't really diverse to anybody else, and he feels like this guy I can probably talk with this guy. I need somebody to talk to that's probably not my parents or any of the Justice League members, because normally he would go to Lois, but he can't go to Lois. Not too long ago, and once I read this, it's like, man, it was like Endgame. It's like Infinity War before Infinity War, where most random people in various parts of the world, I'm not sure what the wide radius is exactly. I doubt it was like across the world, but it could be interpreted that way. Well, where random people just vanish. They call them the vanished. It's not like the snap. This is the vanish. Where he's telling the priest where I gotta be a little bit more, make sure I am uh he's questioning about like how, you know, the shape of the world is like, had essentially had he made enough of a difference, had he protected the world at the best of his capabilities. And that's, you know, he's personally struggling with, on top of what went on, and that he was powerless, uh you know, dealing with something like that. He telling him one time that he's gonna he heard he was like literally in bed, and he hears, I'm pretty sure it's Kyle Rayner, he looks like Kyle Rayner, uh calling for help out in space. And of course we see John Stewart later, so of course there's been like at least a couple of Green Lanterns, you know, showing up, but they don't really, you know, we see like quite a few Justice League members, but only like Wonder Woman and a little bit of Batman actually doing something. But Kyle is having like a situation in space, you know, is trapped, so he's asking for Superman himself, like, help me, Superman. So Superman gets out of bed, flies into space, destroyed this little machine thing to get Kyle loose. He asked like, he want me to, you know, he want any assistance, but now Kyle's like, no, I got it from here, but thanks. So on his way back, because he usually do this when he ever, you know, comes from space back to the planet. The first thing he does is listen for the heartbeat of his wife, because he has his first instinct, and he notices he can't hear her heartbeat. He, you know, flies at, you know, like almost like supersonic speed, you know, scouring all over the place just to see if he can pick up on her at all, and he can't find her. And you see, like, you know, he's worried. It's just like, is the, you know, one of those rare occasions where, like, you know, Superman like actually gets panicked, and anybody would, is if they had his capabilities. Like, it's something like, what the heck is my wife? Like, I you know, it's like, she's not around, I can't find her, and she is gone. So now she is among other random people. This is very randomized of vanished people that occurred, you know, in different parts of the world. It's not as catastrophic as something like Infinity War, where like literally half the population was dusted. But it's not on that scale, but still like a decent portion here and there. And nobody knows why. And my only concern is, unlike in Infinity War and Endgame, where it seems like a huge, you know, crisis, there's not even just, you know, planet Earth, there's, you know, universal expanding. It's just localized on Earth in the DC universe, but it's like different pockets here and there. But it should have still, they bring it to notice, but everybody seems like they're going about their day as usual, while not, like, you know, having some news, you know, big, you know, news reports of people like being interviewed and they're crying like, oh, I can't find my husband, or like my 10-year-old kid is missing, blah blah blah. You know, it should be like a big massive panic. I mean, it seems like it is, but it's not really shown. It's more so it's told. That's kind of my personal issue. And Superman is having to be like, is going to be seemingly going to be the center of this. He eventually flies off. He only takes a little bit of a respite because normally he has to make his rounds to, you know, save the day and everything like that. He only spend like at least like a 10-minute break, you know, like a smoke break or something like that, just to talk with his priest. And of course, the priest is going through something of a crisis of himself, but they kind of like, you know, leaving it vague until like in the latter, or at least halfway through the story. And it's like, you know, he's meeting one of his parishioners, and it's like, oh, we gotta, you know, keep our son like out of the church because him and his little friends was kind of like talking stuff about your situation, and we don't want to cause any ruckus. It's like, I understand, and of course this personally upsets him, and Superman flies in like is anything wrong, man? Like, I'm here, I can listen. Like no, I'm here for you. It's like, what's going on? So he continued on about like, like a sin that he is struggling with, essentially. He mentioned about how there's like a war torn area. It's never specific on what area. I'm pretty sure there's kind of playing like a little loosey goosey with, it's kind of like Top Gun. We don't know we don't want to name the specific country. We want to leave it up to interpretation. Especially, this is I don't know, like maybe like 4 or so years after the whole 9/11 situation. So we don't want to, say like, oh, it's a specific country or anything like that. So leave it like very vague. Where Superman flies in and stuff, it like snatches all the weapons, destroys them, and he tells everybody to just stop this, and essentially try to use their words. But you know, a kid just ended up throwing a rock at Superman, and of course it bounces off him. I don't know how I'm supposed to interpret this panel, but it essentially seems like it bounced it off of Superman's chest. You see it bounce off, but it kind of ricochets back to the kid's head and knocks him out. And of course Superman cradles him, makes sure he's like, the kid's okay. But all these people who's like getting to this shootout all just resort to picking up rocks and just going to like fight club themselves to death. And it's like Superman's like, you can't make them physically stop, especially without killing them. And it's like, if people are going to people sometimes, as tough as it is for him to like, deal with that. It's like, I thought, like, as many people like that I even thought about when I was young, where it's like it'd be so easy, especially with like how things going on with Russia and Ukraine and everything like that. It's like it'd be so easy for Superman just go in there, take all the weapons, destroy them, and just try to get people to solve their solutions with words. But like, if people are so agitated with each other to the point where there's like, well, if I don't have no weapons, I'll just resort to my bare fists if I have to, because it's like that much of vitriol, and it's paying Superman where he can't force them to not. I mean, of course, nobody can. He ain't expecting them to like each other, but he just wants them to stop trying to kill each other, and he can't do that. It's like that line from the Superman movies: "There are great people they wish to be, they lack the light to show them a way." And it's just like, even the priest of this, explain to him, it's like, you can't make people like be nice to each other, essentially, or just play nice. But then one of the military leaders, is Knox guy, who sends this creature that's beholden to him to go kill a lot of his the military leaders of his enemies. And Superman flies in and starts attacking this creature, and it's like a modified human that's grotesquely experimented on by this this mysterious group that we only get like a tidbit of this shadowy organization. And Superman fights this thing, and of course his claws are sharp enough to still give at least minor cuts to Superman. But you fight off this thing long enough before eventually Knox shows up and explain that Superman, you're not helping matters none. Like, these guys are like enemies. They were dealt with as such. They committed war crimes, all this other stuff. And of course it's easy to take your word for it, because I can't hear the other person's side of things, because you sent a monster to go kill them. But it's like, you know, Superman, he expressed to Superman like, what makes you, you know, judge, jury of us? It's like, is it your country? You don't know what's going on, what we went through here. And of course Superman understands, like, you know, he doesn't know what's going on, and he sees everybody cheering for Knox and all these, you know, other people who suffer loss and trying to dig themselves out of the rubble, you know, all this other stuff. So Superman is like, you know, how can I help? He knows these people are like, are still struggling regardless. So he helps people out of the rubble. He helps where he can. But as this guy was about to fly off, he overhears Knox talking with one of his subordinates about this machine that was in the possession of his enemies, that was, you know, potentially going to be used against him. And it was turned on, but it wasn't capable of focusing. So that's where the whole vanishing happens. The machine caused random people to disappear, but it was supposed to be made to, like, you know, essentially disappear a specific person or people, but it never gotten down to a science. So that's where the whole, like, the first vanishing happened. Yes, there is a second. So Knox calls it the weapon. They never give it a specific name. They just call it the weapon. So, you know, the typical MacGuffin thing. But Superman prefers to call it a machine, but the way it was used is, you know, Knox considers the weapon. And Superman wants to just take it because it's like, I'm not leaving it in your freaking hands, because this, you know, wasn't finely tuned to be specific, and it's because it's so random, so many people disappeared because of it. So I'm not leaving it in your hands to potentially use against anybody. Of course, Knox is like, you know, so it's like, you know, this is my position. It's like, you know, I want essentially wanted by rights by defeating my enemy, and he seemingly like he's like, we're not going to use it. But let's be honest, he was probably going to, even as like a threat to him. There's too easy of a what's the word? It's too easy for a temptation for him to potentially use it. So obviously Superman can't leave this in this guy's possession. Eventually, I forgot what the monster's name is. It's not really important. He's only invented for this story. The monster eventually, you know, well, he will eventually show up, but he calls Knox on the phone because there's the little remnants of his enemies left, where this creature is about to, you know, assassinate using one of the, you know, the others, the military allies' guns to shoot all of them like a firing squad kind of situation. And Superman hears this. He flies so fast because he make a, you know, mention about people say I'm faster than a speeding bullet, but sometimes multiple bullets might be an issue. And Superman, unfortunately, is just shy from actually catching all those bullets. Unfortunately, he fails, and all those, you know, all but one person is dead. And so Superman draws a line in the sand for this creature. It's like, do not step over this line. This guy's coming with me, and you back away. Of course, this thing ain't listening. So there's a fight going on. Superman eventually stops him, but notices this, you know, mass grave over the kick up of all that sand in their fight. Superman sees this mass grave of other people. Clearly isn't the first time that people have been assassinated here by the hands of Nox or Nox's people. So after he deals with this creature, at least briefly, he flies back to Nox saying like, "Oh, I'm definitely taking this machine now because I cannot trust you because I saw the bias. You're a horrible person." But yeah, this is where like the kick up with the sand occurs in the fight. But the creature shows up. Don't know how he get there that fast. But as a struggle happens between them and this orb, and all of a sudden, Nox and the creature vanish because the orb was, being handled too inappropriately, and they switched it on. And randomly, only Superman is only left standing in the room. So all he knows, they're possibly, some people theorize the vanished are possibly dead. Superman doesn't believe that. He doesn't want to believe that. So he takes it to his forces of solitude to try to run some experiments and see what's up. But because of what happened in this country, and Superman being at the center of it, everybody starts blaming Superman. Even some of the Justice League members thinking like, dude, you in like a whole nother country doing like a political little strife thing. You insert yourself that you're not supposed to, because now it's already complicated from the beginning. Now you're overcomplicating it. But also, we also got this other person, Mr. Orr, who's this like mercenary dude / spy or something, who wants to take the orb off Superman's hands, but obviously no way he can physically take it from him. But Nox and the creature, well, the creature was on loan to Nox because Nox was, by extension, is getting backing from these mysterious benefactors that also hired Mr. Orr. And Mr. Orr kind of looks like Jim Gordon. It's like, man, Jim Gordon? It's a very Jim Gordon look. I do love this art. I gotta mention that too, because it doesn't need to be photorealistic or anything like that, but just realistic enough where it actually look like human faces. And the only way, it's funny because he tried to get Superman's attention by burning the ground in the shape of the Superman signal in order to get Superman's attention. But of course, Superman's not giving over this orb to anybody. Here's where we find out that the priest has cancer. And so it's growing. There's nothing anybody can do about it. Mr. Orr shows up because he figured out through his ways that Superman's been frequently hanging out with this priest. And he expressed to his priest to try to, we got a mutual friend. I need to get, in touch with him because he has something in our possession, in his possession that doesn't belong to him. I don't think it's never really explained, because these mysterious benefactors seemingly had created this orb, but since Nox's enemies had it, I guess you can make the argument that there was sowing strife between these two groups for some other secret benefit that they will come out on top of. It's never really explained as to why or what. They're just there, and seemingly they've been orchestrating this whole entire thing. For what purpose? Don't know. So, or instructs that he needs Superman and that orb, or at least that orb. So now Superman's getting chastised by the other League members about the whole situation with the second vanishing and him inserting himself in a political strife between a different country, and how much of a media uproar it's causing. And given like Arthur is ruler of a sovereign country himself, he is like, from that perspective, don't agree with what Superman has done and didn't really think it through. John Stewart is upset because he like, you know, because him being like a military marine, also doesn't care for how Superman handled the situation. Now is because there was no tact involved. He just flew in there and just, you know, swung his muscles around to try to insert himself to make people stop. And it, you know, he, I guess, didn't think things through. But now Superman, given the fact that he personally lost somebody, and of course John Jones, Martian Manhunter, explains that a lot of people lost people. You're not the only one, so you don't get like the monopoly on tragedy on this part. And of course Superman expressed that he needs to handle this himself because he wants to see this through. Of course Batman is like, I can at the very least respect that you want to handle this personally. But as far as they you know, grace they're willing to give Superman in this situation, which I understand their point of view. Like, Superman didn't probably think it through before he swooped in and tried to stop this war in this other country. And of course Superman's at his home base in the Arctic, or North Pole sometimes, and the Forces of Solitude running experiments on this machine. I always love the look of, because just like with the Batcave, I expect the Forces of Solitude to be massive, holding all these trophies, all these Kryptonian gizmos, Halex, you know, all sorts of things. Because Superman has the technology. He's, you know, not like a brute or anything like that. He is got some level of intellect, especially with the Kryptonian technology, in order to figure some things out if he need to run his own investigation. So I like it when writers incorporate that in, because people tend to forget, oh, Superman's just all about his powers. No, he is fairly smart. It's not as smart as like Batman or Luthor or anything like that, but he has enough of an intellect to run, you know, some, you know, a certain degree of experiments and tests and things like that, because he has the technology to do it. Very advanced ones at that. To see, like, you know, what's going on with this orb. And then he does get an idea, an awful idea. We'll get to that soon. Then we see this like mystical woman in the desert, where Superman and Miss Orr was having a conversation the other day, and she start using some magic. I think she's kind of like, her name is like Hyaclon or something like that, who's, I'm not sure, maybe if this is like a person that only made for this particular story, or she's tangentially tied to Wonder Woman's world in some fashion. But she starts summoning these monster elementals to start attacking Superman, first being this water elemental. During this part, when Superman's telling this story about these elementals, Superman confesses that the reason that he went to this priest specifically is because he knew this guy had cancer. He knew how aggressive it is. And he asked Superman, like, he will eventually ask Superman, can you cure me? And Superman is honest, like, I don't know. I never tried and I won't. because if it ever gets out that I, was able to cure cancer, then everybody in that mom, and of course the priest finishes the sentence, yeah, and everybody will expect you to perform all kinds of miracles, and that wouldn't be right. It kind of reminds me of the first rule in Bruce Almighty by God to Bruce, where it's like, don't ever tell anybody you're God. Trust me, you don't want that kind of attention. And I can see that through here. It's like everybody already thinks Superman's like some kind of, demigod or something that could do all sorts of wonders with his powers. But they also found out that he has technology that can possibly cure cancer. Not ideal to have, because everybody will start hounding him on it. So I understand, which is a shame. Because you will want something like that for the world. So I don't know. Some might, leave a comment below. Like, do you think it was a good idea because I think in current comics that while Superman is teaming up with Mercy and tangentially Lex Luthor to run this company called Supercorp, along with like Steel and his niece or daughter, I forget which one, to help better things in Metropolis. Maybe they have the kind of technology to possibly benefit in curing lots of potential diseases. So I'm not sure why it would be, and of course it's years ago. At the time, it probably would have made sense. Like, yeah, maybe it's not a good idea to let people know that you probably have technology that could possibly help in that level. But nowadays, it's kind of like behooves you to try to, maybe not give this technology, but because they got super covered, they got like a specific location where you can actually like perform certain things to help people, rather than just giving it out willy-nilly, or at least the technology out willy-nilly. And of course, he continues on with the story about these elementals that this woman's blaming Superman. She has like an ire against Superman. I don't know what. Maybe it's because she's from this country and she blames him for that vanishing thing. So that's what I'm assuming, because never really vocalized as to what her grief is with Superman, but only left to infer that since he's here in this particular region, she has to probably got something to do with, connected to the people that are hurt here or vanish completely, and Superman's at the center of it because he's getting all the blame. See, some of this, after Superman, douses out the water monster using his heat vision, vaporizing it, she starts summoning like fire, wind, and rock against Superman. And Superman easily like dispels the fire creature by spinning around and like a cyclone and blew it away. Then of course the wind creature shows up, then the rock creature shows up, and then eventually the water and the fire shows back up again. And I like this line of Superman after these creatures threaten to destroy this planet and every living thing on it, and Superman points out to them, like, it looks at each one of them and how they're even chemically be able to function. And it's like, he looks at the fire creature, it's like, I will destroy the ozone layer. He looks at the water creature, I will burn the oceans. Look at the rock, I will vaporize the lands. It looks like, he looks at the, the wind creature, it's like, I will destroy the atmosphere if you dare hurt any living creature on this planet. And sure, I know I'll make it through all this stuff, but I can always easily live on another populated planet and make that my adopted home. But I will destroy this place where you won't live here either. So these people knows, like, Superman got them, cornered on this one. So they all disappear and go back to whence they came. But it was an awesome display of flex from Superman, knowing like I can easily, nuke this world on my own in various different ways to where like you elementals don't stack up to me. So just go away. And of course, this, saddens this woman, and Wonder Woman ends up showing up like she says, like, your tears don't belong on the ground, they belong on my shoulder, and just hugs this woman, is like, let me comfort you, my sister. And it's like a nice little moment and a very picturesque, because if somebody like Superman and Wonder Woman are like kind of like the go-to people, maybe Flash as well, it's kind of like the go-to superheroes where he's like, you can probably like easily lean on them to cry on if you just need to unload, and they're just there to like take that weight off of you. And it's like, yeah, I can definitely see anybody, like leaning on Diana's shoulders just to, unburden themselves, because it's like you get that feeling like you understand, even though I don't like this woman like as morally, I understand that she's like bereaved and she just need that something like that, a shoulder to cry on. You got that weight, and like one of them just comes in and just doesn't need to punch everything. She just there to like as like the soul of the world, and she just like I'm here for you. It's a sweet moment, even though it's not like a Wonder Woman story or a Batman story or like a Justice League story. It's fun that they are there for certain moments. And Hyaclon gives this mystical Xiphos, because it's a short sword and is drawn like a Xiphos. So ironically, is Wonder Woman who shows up. She presents the sword to Diana to like, I need you to kill Superman. And Wonder Woman's like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's my friend. But it's like, no, he has a machine that can potentially, because it's his fault. He has, potentially can cause more harm. And Mr. Orr shows up talking mad shit and telling like these ladies like, isn't like somebody gonna grab a broom and sweep here and blah blah blah. It's like just emphasizing how much of an asshole he is. Some might infer that him being very misogynistic, but it's like, yeah, he just can complete dick. And of course, like why would you say this to Diana knowing that she'll pop your head like a fucking grape very easily without any much of a it's like pushing over a bottle of water to her. It is nothing to her. And she's the original muscle mommy. But of course, he tries to get these two women to essentially work for him. Of course, they don't like I'm not working for you. I don't work for anybody. But he words things in a way to make them understand, just to get them to do it anyway, to stop, to get Superman so he can get that orb off his possession. And it's like, look at this. It's like, you talking such mad shit, knowing for well, like she can easily, because it puts kind of shove, because Wonder Woman is still a warrior at heart. She won't hesitate to kill you. She isn't her first choice. She always relies on it being a very last choice, but she won't hesitate to pull that string if need be. And she does it in a very efficient way. Like, do not think like you can talk all kind of slick and don't think she will like just pants your ass. At some point, Superman shows up in Gotham after he saves a woman from falling to her death by the Joker. Of course, Batman's about to swoop in. It looks like he's about to catch her, but Superman swoops in and saves her as Joker, because it's not a Joker story. Joker doesn't have any speaking lines outside of laughing. You already see him in the background getting arrested and the girl getting saved. And Superman's like trying to get something off his chest to Batman, expressing that he's talking kind of weird to Batman because Batman knows it's like you acting kind of funny right now, man. But he's expressing to Batman, look, you're gonna do so much better rather than just rely on fear and brute force to try to make a change. I want you to be better. I want you to use, you know, other means in order to inspire hope and save people than what you're currently doing. And it's kind of a weird thing to say because it's out of the blue to Batman. As Batman goes back to the cave, he's starting to piece certain things together. And of course, this is where Superman expressed that he can't cure the priest's cancer, but what he offers him is a trip to the forces of solitude, to just to like a field trip essentially, to observe what's going on inside, because very little people get the chance to see, like, the regular people that's not superheroes or villains that break in, who are able to witness the wonders that's inside the forces of solitude. And at that same time, Wonder Woman shows up to hopefully stop Superman from doing what he's about to eventually do. Okay. So yeah, the priest is looking around the wonders of the fortress itself, and it's drawn very good. Like it's very detailed inside the fortress, which like I expect it to be. It's supposed to be like a massive man cave essentially. And then he admits to the priest that he's planning on using this machine. And right then Diana burst in, which also sets off like a security alarm, like a meltdown sequence essentially, to destroy the area. And Diana's trying to stop Superman from using it because she thinks, like many people, this machine will end up with people's death, and he thinks like, oh, Superman's probably bereaved about the loss of his wife, and he's probably not thinking clearly, and he's probably trying to unalive himself. But Superman finds it ironic that if that is the case, it's kind of funny that you're trying to potentially kill me to prevent me from unaliving myself. It's kind of like backwards. And the sword that was given to her is mystical in means, so of course it will affect him like anybody else. And of course it leaves a cut, and a little kind of cool, the fact that the way he takes a drop of his blood, he flings it at such a high speed, it's almost like a bullet. And of course Diana's fast enough to deflect it by the hilt of the sword, and it leaves like a crack. And I was like, Jesus. It's like he expects her to dodge it, obviously, but it's like, whoa, there's a straight up bullet with his blood. And as the fight ensues, as he's trying to stop him, Mr. Aura comes flying in on his helicopter as the whole place is coming down. Superman, and of course, the priest is trying to dodge all the debris as the fight is carrying on. It's like, dude, it's like, read the room. There's a bystander nearby while y'all trying to fight. And of course, they try to take it outside, and that's where the helicopter comes by. Superman try to take the, Mr. Aura's helicopter and saying like, brace yourself, Mr. Aura. And he tried to hit the, Diana with the helicopter. Mr. Aura is crawling himself out of the wreckage And as these two powerhouses are duking it out, he tells Diana, there's bystanders down there, Diana, please save them. And Diana's like, oh, damn it. She knows what she has to do because she can't let these two people die. So she goes and saves these guys from the wreckage. As Superman flies back, and Diana has to look behind her as she knows what is being activated. And of course, you see like an outline of Superman's and all the vanished people, where they at that moment in time leaves like an outline, like a cartoonist outline of their body in the last moment. And so Superman used the orb, and it and along with him is gone. And this is a confusing part for me, because we don't see Diana from this moment forward. Mr. Orr brings the priest to his superiors, or at least the people who hired him, and they end up running experiments on the priest, essentially trying to do the exact same thing they did with that other creature that we saw at that country. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm reading through this part, why Diana leaving this priest with this guy? Nobody, the priest didn't speak up. It's like, I don't like this guy, don't leave him with him. Okay, take him back to Metropolis. Nothing like that. It's like, I kind of wish there was like a panel explaining, like, oh, Diana left, left, the priest back in Metropolis, but Miss Orr showed back up and kidnapped him or something like that to at least explain it away. But maybe that did happen. I'm not sure. I kind of wish that was a little bit more explained, because like, how did they get a hold of this priest and he started running experiments on this guy? Of course, it doesn't really sit too well with Mr. Orr when it was explained to him by these shadowy people that, yeah, we technically cured him of this cancer, but it's still there, but we kind of modified it, so it kind of harnessed it in a way. But now he's going to be turned into this grotesque kind of monster, cybernetic kind of monster. But it isn't perfect, so they end up going to terminate him anyway, which doesn't sit well with Mr. Orr because he kind of liked the priest. So he will essentially secretly break this guy out. But we're inside essentially this other nether realm area, this other plane of existence where everything seems like paradise, essentially. And that's where Clark or at least Superman meets Clark for some reason. It's like, at first I'm thinking like, did the Orb split his identities or something? What's going on? No, I'm not gonna bury the lead here. This is a robot. We'll get to as to why this robot Clark is here. But Superman's only concern is leaving the Orb in this robot's care as he flies off to the local village and he sees Lois on a tree picking a fruit with his old lady. He swoops in, carries her in her arms, and he makes like a line of dialogue where he mentions how, like, the only woman that who's strong enough to hold me. And they eventually super bang, obviously. And then this monster that disappeared earlier shows up in this little hideaway with where robot Clark is, and attacks him and blinds him and takes the orb. Then we see a seemingly alive Jor-El and I never remember what's his biological mom's name, but it doesn't really matter. They're robots too. And everything seems like paradise. These robots are pretty much like caretakers, essentially. And this is where we figure out what is really going on. Of course, the orb was used by evil dictators, but when Superman got a hold of it and ran his experiments on it, he realized what he probably had, on his hands. He modified it on using the foundation of the Phantom Zone. He come to realize that, what after what his biological father went through with Krypton, and leaving him with a decision on, because it's like very, minutes from destruction, he come to the decision that if anybody's gonna be saved, it's gonna be my son. And so he had to make that kind of decision. Superman knows that I don't want to have to make this kind of decision because I form bonds, and like I'm a protector of this planet, and I don't want to have to pick and choose of saving the world or saving my own kid. So he modified this machine to be like a Noah's Ark situation, and like a potential last ditch in case of emergency break glass, where if something happened with the planet, where there's some kind of catastrophic situation like Krypton, I can shepherd everybody into essentially a good version of the Phantom Zone, because the Phantom Zone typically is a prison, like a desolate hellhole for enemies of Krypton. But he modified it to be like a different thing, where it's paradise instead of a hellscape. So in case anybody, but it's kind of confusing how long he had it, who had it first, because people who seemingly was, because when he modified it, when he had it in his possession, but prior to his possession, before the modifications, all the people who vanished prior seemingly went to the same place though, because Lois vanished before he had it, the machine in his possession, and he touched it up a bit and made it a paradise inside. I don't know, the timeline, is confusing to add up a bit, but all in all, he's supposed to use this as like a Noah's Ark situation. But because it was based on the original Phantom Zone tech, all the denizens, at least the one denizen, of course, typically is supposed to be a prison, supposed to be more than one person, but here Zod is here because he still was in the Phantom Zone and he got tied into all this stuff. So he pretty much turned this creature that Superman battled earlier into like a dog, essentially, like a wild dog, and sicked him on Jor-El, who, originally they constantly was attacking the village, essentially. And Jor-El was, the robot was killed or destroyed along with robot Kal-El. And so Superman and Zod starts fighting, and their climactic battle is like tearing up the ground beneath them. It's kind of like, turn like certain lava pits and eruptions and other catastrophic, cataclysms. And of course, Zod hates Superman with a burning passion, just wants to kill this dude. And of course, Superman doesn't want to do it because he doesn't really hate Zod. And of course, Zod thinks it's BS. Back to Orr and their experiments on the priest, that little mystical sword that somehow he got off of Diana is embedded into the body of the priest to be used because they want to sick this dude on Superman. And of course, or eventually breaks the guy out. Not too long after, Superman gets a hold of the orb and sends it back to the earthly plane, thinking he sent it to the only person there he can truly trust was the priest, because he knows he won't, the priest won't be tempted to use it. But unfortunately, did not know that the priest was being experimented on. So when it went to his possession, he used it to go back to the Paradise era. Here's where you get the little lowdown of the creation of the robots and all this other stuff. So the fight between Zod and Superman continue. And this is the last we see of Mr. Orr after this point. But the priest end up grabbing hold of the orb, gets back, and Superman manages to stop Zod. And I want to pull up this panel because it's pretty much kind of funny. Whereas Superman does the Chun-Li lightning kick for some reason. I'm pretty sure the artist wasn't thinking of that at the time. But when you look at that, if you play video games and you're familiar with Street Fighter, that's Chun-Li's lightning kick. I'm sorry, it's just, I can't help but think that. It's kind of funny. Superman ends up destroying the machine, which is going to critical mass at this point, but not before he sends all the vanished people that didn't die at the hands of the Zod or his creature, or even the priest himself, because he's kind of like losing it a bit, and he ends up killing a couple of people when he was transported there. He just seems like everybody like a threat or something like that. He's pretty much got his mind warped a bit. And Superman is just shocked to see that his friend turning out this way, and he's begging Superman to kill him. Of course, Superman won't do that. But then, like, the other creatures show up, so now the priest is fighting against this kind of like a prototype. The priest is 2.0. This is 1.0. That they're duking it out in this other plane, and they're essentially left there as everybody else goes back to Earth. And of course, the comic ends with Superman building a new fortress in like a makeshift Mayan temple. This is kind of weird. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why it doesn't bother me, but it kind of like it weirds me out. It's like my mind can't rationalize, like, because Superman's always had like a fortress in like a snowy landscape, like North Pole or the Arctic, one of the two, but not something in like the Amazon jungle or something. It's weird. But the movie ends with like everything being okay-ish, but not satisfying for Superman, because he ends up having to sit in the sin essentially of what he did, because it says he has like a selfish moment where it's selfish, but it's like all good deeds are, the road to hell is all paved with good intentions kind of situation, where he wanted an out essentially for the planet Earth in case something cataclysmic might happen here, like they did with his home world. And he loves the people on this planet so much, and the bonds that he formed with everybody, and the love he had with Lois, he does not want it all to just being completely, turned to ash in a blink of an eye over something that he wouldn't be able to prevent. But we understand. But in that process, he, is possibly ostracized from his other leaguers, and the world still blames him for the whole catastrophe that happened in that other country, and the fact that now a priest that he confided into and befriended has turned into some kind of creature that he has yet to understand how that even happened. and he's lost essentially now that he wouldn't be able to get back anymore or possibly save him. So now that is hanging over his head for this moment forward, at least in this kind of story. But it's still kind of fun little story of Superman's I got a mistake that Superman caused that wasn't done with ill intent. It was, you know, but it still ended bitter to him. But it's still a pretty sweet story, and the art is freaking amazing. The narrative is pretty swell. I was kind of wishing to kind of tighten a few little things up to make it cohesive, like the whole point of the origin of this orb and who had it first, who had it second, who had it last, and when the modifications were done specifically, because I was a little confused on that part. But anyway, that was Superman for Tomorrow. And that's all the Superman, or at least DC comics for now. The next one technically is Marvel, but technically not. But I'm gonna leave that as a surprise because that won't come up until early May. But that's gonna be kind of like a surprise. But all in all, let me know in the comments what you think of Superman for Tomorrow. Do you have favorite Superman comic book stories that you recently read? Leave a comment, let me know what that was, and I will see you guys in a little bit for a kind of a discussion video that's been hanging over my head for a couple of days. But at any rate, leave a comment, leave a like, share this with your friends, follow me on YouTube, Twitch, and check out my Patreon. If you want to financially support the channel, you can join in as low as $1, and that will greatly support the channel. And I will see you all in a bit. Peace.